Welcome everybody to Den Excelsior episode 128. This is the week of March 22nd, and we're continuing the X-Men train, the X-Men hype. This is a big X-Men week for all of us. Today we're gonna be talking about X-Men: The Last Stand, X3. Is it X3 or X-Men: The Last Stand?
No, it's called X-Men: The Last Stand. I'm
Okay.
Dennis, by the way, and it's Ricky.
Yes.
Yeah, X-Men: The Last Stand. They weren't very consistent with the naming of these three movies.
We're not consistent with naming each other on the show.
The second one's just called X2. It was sometimes marketed as X3: The Last Stand, but the official name of it is X-Men: The Last Stand. But we're not only going to talk about that, right? We're also, please tell me, we're going to talk about the good one, the good stuff.
We're going to talk about X-Men 97, but more importantly, we're going to talk about X-Men with forever friend of the show, Clarke.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yeah,
it hasn't been that long since you've been here, but I was happy when we started. I started reaching out to people to see like who wanted to talk about the different X-Men movies, because we're going to go through all of them, all the way up to Deadpool 2. Right, that was the last one that came out, right? Like
Well, technically New Mutants, right?
Oh yeah, but we already did New Mutants.
Yeah, we already did New Mutants.
Yeah, you're right. New Mutants was the last X-Men movie in the Fox franchise. We're going to talk about them all, and when I gave people the choice of which ones, Clarke jumped on this one, which is funny to me. But I know he has some special like insights on this one that he really likes to share.
I will explain why when we get to it.
I know. I think I've shared them with Ricky before, but we'll let Clarke do it when we get to that point. But it's kind of dealer's choice. Like since we are going to also talk about the first two episodes of X-Men 97 later today, that came out this week. Disney's got 8 more episodes in the queue for us, one every Wednesday, all the way through the middle of May. What do you guys want to do first when we get to the spotlight?
Let's just talk about 97 now.
You want to talk about 97 now?
Yeah. Let's just get right into 97, because we're going to be talking about 97 throughout the course of as the new episodes.
In fact, I want to directly, compare 97 with X-Men 3, because a lot of the greatest strengths is X3's greatest weaknesses and such.
Yeah, so. I will save the comparisons for later.
Yes, we'll save that.
The first 2 episodes of X-Men 97 came out of the gate swinging so hard that, like, one, the music,
brilliant.
Like I've been talking to people about, yeah. I've been talking to people. They're like, "Do you think they're going to change it?" I'm like, "If they do, they're stupid."
Yes,
and I don't think they really changed that music at all. It sounds
it's just
awesome.
A new recording of it and a new
it's a new recording
to fit the Marvel the timing of the new characters.
Yeah,
highlight and stuff.
Yeah, and the intro's same but different, which was really cool. I really enjoyed all of the
if you've never seen the little mini documentaries that are on YouTube about the writing of the X-Men theme, I highly recommend it. Just do like a YouTube search for like history of X-Men theme or something like that. I'd have to look them up exactly, but they have ones where they interviewed the guy who actually wrote it and told the stories, and he compared the previous X-Men cartoons, which was like, how do you really make, the words X-Men sound cool, and which is very difficult, but about how he came up with a theme and like wrote and decided to make it instrumental, and it just cooks. It's a really good YouTube documentary.
I feel like you have a podcast somewhere talking about this. Do you not?
I don't. It wasn't. I didn't focus on this. I mentioned it back in my old radio show. But this is there's a deeper dive YouTube stuff.
Somewhere.
I'll look it up, but I highly recommend it.
I liked it, so I have no attachment towards the original. But I did go back and watch like the first, I think, 3 episodes of the old show,
Okay.
and I think they're very different shows. Based off of that sound judgment, to me they're very different
The
shows.
first 3 episodes of the original show is like a 3-part
The
miniseries.
first 2 are 2
That's
parts.
the first 2. Okay. Yeah.
Oh.
They're kind of meant to be like a soft like intro to people who have, or who might not be familiar with X-Men. And and also to reacquaint people who are fans of X-Men. I think they
Have you
are
guys
different
watched those
shows.
recently or at all? Or no?
Yes,
Okay.
I have. I think they are only different shows in that, like, the new X-Men 97 does not care if you've never watched X-Men before. That is on you at this point, because to only watch the first 3 episodes and then judge them against 97, yeah, they're different in that you don't have all the stories that came in between, which was nuts. It's like a bonkers story. Like,
Well, I'm not comparing it in story. I'm just saying, like, in terms of
I would say the
even like
tone is
as
slightly
tone.
more adult,
Yeah, the tone's very
but
different.
I don't think it's very
The
different. I don't think the tone is very
the
different, but I think
delivery of their lines
It
is
does feel a little different. It looks a little different, but
it feels faster and it feels
Yeah.
more
it's a better
for-
show. I'm
more
gonna
mature.
I'm gonna say it's a
I
better show.
actually agree. I think it's a better show.
Like,
Yeah.
I had reservations last week about the animation. I think the animation looks good. It's very smooth. It's better than What If's janky shit that they got going. But I will say, the one thing that I think it might be off is the cell shading. I don't know if the cell shaded character designs work well with this type of animation, or as well as this type of animation.
I think it works great. I think for me, the 2 most noticeable changes that really kind of weirded me out were, the level of detail in the eyes is so high now that you can see the tear ducts on all the characters, and it's very strange to me to see the pink, in the corner of people's eyes, like animated in a cartoon. Like, I'm not used to that, especially a comic book based cartoon. Like, I couldn't help staring at everybody's tear ducts all the time whenever it was close up. The other one that kind of weirded me out, and I don't mean to sound, like I don't appreciate everything that the team is doing for us, but Rogue sounds like a granny. I'm just Rogue sounds old, man. She sounds really, really old, and that was weird to me.
How old is Rogue in that show?
She's
Is she kind of like supposed to be younger looking because she's younger, because she's
No, I mean, in this show, she's already had a history. She started out with the Brotherhood. It's the same as the comic history, so she's been around for a bit. So she's not,
but she's not like a
teenager,
gray-haired old lady. Like,
no, but I would say she's like early 30s.
Yeah, she's in her 30s, and so
people, you smoke back then in the 90s. That's like half your life, right?
Is it the same actress?
Yes,
it
that's
is,
what
right?
I'm saying.
That's what I thought.
All of the actors,
I thought it's all the same.
Except for Cyclops. Cyclops died 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. So all of the actors are the same, and they are quite old now because they were, of a decent, like, adult age when they recorded the show back in the 90s, and here we are 30 years later, and they got them all back. And I will say, like, they all sound like a warm blanket over me. You know what I mean? Like, I feel comforted, but to hear them again, and even Cyclops, I think he's like, Disney's always really great about getting sound alikes. Like, they have like a whole sound alike program and stuff. So, like, the guy playing Cyclops sounds like
Yeah.
Cyclops. You know, like he also does sound younger than the rest of them too. Like I could hear it in that voice. But Storm sounds amazing, and she makes me feel so angry at the movies we've been watching these last few weeks, because that Storm, everything she says carries so much weight and so much just so much intent in every line she puts out there, and you hang on every word that she says. And it just hurts my soul that like Halle Berry is just there, you know, she's just there doing a regular American accent. It just kills
Absolutely.
me.
And one of the things to remember about the X-Men in the 90s is that in the comics and sort of in the cartoon that, you know, this kind of took it over, or was, I don't remember if it was directly mentioned and such, but in the comics they split the team into two teams, the blue team and the gold team, and where Cyclops was the leader of the blue team and Storm was the leader of the gold team. And so Storm is a leader of the X-Men, and like has that gravitas and should. And this is what they're showing, they're portraying, in which they totally and then what was ultimately forced into the movies, which we'll get to more
later.
But that's I totally agree with you that they were following that level of, this is the goddess, this is Storm, this is what she should do. And that's what made the events of part 2 so traumatic and I think important.
They hit hard. And by the way, we are going to spoil the X-Men 97 first 2 episodes. If you haven't watched them, they're 33 minutes each. Just go check them out on Disney Plus, then come back. I'm just giving that warning in case, because I feel like right now what we're doing is giving Ricky the chance to ask us all the questions you want to know, like, because I really want to know what you got out of the story.
I feel like it brought me up to speed on what my current knowledge is of X-Men is, right? All right, I know I understand the analogy. They're fighting for their cause, and Magneto's now a good guy. And I think they did a lot of groundwork in these first 2 episodes of at least bringing me up to speed where they want me, right? Because I think they realize that trying to recap, what is it, 50 episodes of
I think it's a lot more than 50 episodes
of, is it, do I dare say, hit or miss stories?
Seasons back then used to be like 25 30 episodes, so it's
but
a lot.
But you're right, it was really good to start with, Charles Xavier's dead. That's bang right at the beginning. Charles Xavier is dead. This is and that traumatic event is a great place to start, because it's a bookend. It's a vital point. And so it does feel like everything that you're seeing from now forward, even though if you didn't watch the old show, it feels new enough because it's a new situation for the characters, but you still feel all of us that watched it are like, oh, these are still the same characters. They're just dealing with this new trauma.
And honestly, like, the other trick to remember is like nobody really died in the old show, except for technically, on a technicality, Morph dies in the second episode of the original show. But spoilers, Ricky, he comes back through the it's a whole story arc.
Is Morph just Mystique?
Kind of, yeah. Like Morph, they kind of created for the show.
Yeah.
So like there is a character Morph that exists in the comics in the X-Men Age of Apocalypse, but that's like a future story, you know what I mean? Like way later. And that comic had come out right before the TV show, I believe, or right around the same time, like in the 90s. And so they kind of just reappropriated Morph, like the name, and gave him like mystique powers. But if you ever notice in the end credits of the show, they show you each of the files on each character. And it says Morph can just completely copy the powers of anybody too.
See,
so
that's what this new
he's
version.
super juiced.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a little weird.
He's like Taskmaster, sort of,
Except
and
for
then he can
mutants,
copy
right?
the powers, but he doesn't.
And the
He
weapons.
can't copy the skill.
Yeah, he
So-
copies everything.
But
Yeah, it's a little
like,
weird.
so he can
I don't-
copy wings. He can copy.
Are you saying he can't copy the skill? Because he was fighting like Psylocke pretty good.
I think it's a skill too.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because
And
this is the
then-
new Morph. Because the Morph in the original one just copied people. You know,
And-
didn't. You know,
He just made himself look like people. Yeah.
Yes, and so
Yeah.
this time they added the powers, which I'm totally fine with.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much of the skill. Yes, he was fighting, but then again, this is somebody who I'm going to say has been training with Cyclops. And one of the things that I loved is how they showed Cyclops with the hand-to-hand combat. You know, the X-Men, that they're trained. You know, like Cyclops has had these guys trained.
It was
in
cool
more
seeing
than
them
just their
fall.
powers.
For
And
me,
These are fighters.
for me, like my favorite scene of the whole 2 episodes, I mean, there's a lot of good scenes, but when the Sentinel rips open the Blackbird and it blows up, and by the way, they haven't even mentioned the fact that their ship is like gone now. And then they're all free floating in the air, and Storm and Rogue just look at each other, nod, and they begin to do the battle plan. Like
Yeah, none of them are phased.
they don't even say anything. They just start doing the thing that they have already trained a million times over for, and it is beautiful, right? And nobody grabs Cyclops because they just know. They're like, he's got this. And that scene is the scene that made me cry at Comic-Con, by the way. That is the scene they showed us at Comic-Con. They showed the interrogation of Gyrick all the way up to Me, My X-Men. And
oh man, that would
and and I just died. I died from that because it was like everything to me to see Cyclops be the leader the better leader of the X-Men than Professor X ever was. You know what I mean? So, and so I think it's a really awesome thing they're doing, which is he's now ready to finally take over and do the thing and fulfill the promise. And then Magneto shows up and he's like, I guess I'm in charge now. And it's really awesome. It's a fun story. There's a lot
an
of
overall horniness to this show that I kind of enjoy.
There was an overall horniness to the original show too.
Like Charles and Magneto's like slutty new costume.
which is
him and
comic
Rogue,
it's comic accurate. That is
Jean
a costume.
and Scott's thing. Like it's
that's about to get even
and
more
then Wolverine and Morse kind of little thing going on.
Wolverine is definitely banging Morph. I'm pretty sure of that. Like there's some stuff going on there. Yeah. I've seen on TikTok people are like saying how like this new show is just oozing with bisexual energy, and I'm here for it. And it's kind of true. It's kind of true. Like there's a lot of love triangles going on. There's like now there's a love triangle between Gambit, Rogue, and Magneto.
Gambit's all left out.
Oh man, that was painful. And you know what? That's actually canon. Magneto actually does have the ability to neutralize Rogue's power by creating basically a magnetic condom over his body. And I kind of forgot about that when we were talking about X-Men, the first movie, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And it was like, damn it, these movies just don't care the same way this cartoon does. And I think that's why I could spend the entire night, if we wanted to, talking about the cartoon, because the cartoon, the love is so evident in every single scene.
We hear in Hollywood so many times when they talk about the writers of movies and TV shows that are like, yeah, I never read the comics. You know, yeah, we want to take a new take on this and stuff. And we hear that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And we see the results. And you're right, Bryan Singer, great director. He did some research, but yeah, he doesn't know the X-Men as deep.
He doesn't know it like we know it. He doesn't know it like the people who make 90s.
And you're exactly right. The people that make this are the people that know it and love it, that know all the lore.
Yeah.
And that
And they're really
to
good at
follow it.
condensing a lot
Yeah.
of stories together and mixing and matching, because like,
Mhm.
like, I mean, if you were to ask us, did this happen? Did this happen? We could say yes all day long to all of you could go watch any episode of X-Men and we'd be like, yeah, that did happen, but not necessarily in the order. That's where they're really good at rewriting things so that the story arcs make sense at where they're placed and still fit. Like, so like there's a really cool thing happening here where obviously there's a second Jean Grey, right? In the comics, that happens after the Dark Phoenix storyline where Jean dies and Scott meets another woman named Madeline Pryor who looks a hell of a lot like Jean Grey, and he falls in love with her and he has a baby with her. I think she's a human in that, and they're always weirded out because Professor X is like, she's weird, I can't read her brain, and it's like, well, that's fishy, right? But like, I think doing it the way they've done it this way, which is doing it after Professor X is dead, well, then it makes it more plausible, right? So they can take old comic stories that would maybe left you scratching your head back then when you read them, and they can fix them a little bit, and that's what I think I've always loved about the cartoon, the original cartoon, and which I'm very much in love with right now, is the rearranging of all the things. They just do it in such a way where the pieces fit, make a brand new puzzle,
and they can do that in service of the story, not having to deal with the egos of actors and contracts and writing, so that everything doesn't have to be Wolverine centric, like, I know we're going to get into it, but again, one of the things that I absolutely hate about The Last Stand is the replacement of Scott with Wolverine. They're like, well, Hugh Jackman's the star, so we're going to make him the center of the movie. And that's horrible. This is a clear opposite case of where, Wolverine, he's in it, he's important, but there's no way you would say that Wolverine is the star of this show, because none of them are, because they all get their moments, they all get
they definitely
the X-Men
they do a good job of
be.
spotlighting
It's
them.
a team.
I would say X-Men, or Gambit definitely got the shaft in the first 2 episodes. So
yes, we're going to see more of Gambit.
He got his due diligence in the
it's only 2 episodes, but yes,
he got to rock a sick crop top in the kitchen, though. That was, ooh, boy, that was some sexy outfits he had going on there.
I'm sorry, if you remember the 90s.
Oh, I know.
You remember, that crop top is not as shocking for any of us that lived through it.
It is quite accurate. Yeah.
I'm like, I remember breaking movies, and
but I'm glad you liked it more than when you saw the trailers, Ricky. I think that's awesome. I think I'm so excited to see the story that they're going to tell for the next 8 weeks, because it is a little bit more mature. I caught Wolverine dropping things like saying pissed and oh crap and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, okay. But I think that's the coolest part about this show is, like, let's be honest, they made this for us, right? They made this for everybody who grew up watching the old show, and I will say, as much as I'm so happy to see this show, I'm also at the same time a little scared of all the other shows that are gonna get revived because of this one. Because
they've already said, I'm with you. I want a new Spider-Man.
Yeah, I don't want. I wouldn't mind if
you are technically getting a new Spider-Man, but not that Spider-Man.
I wouldn't mind if Christopher Daniel Barnes showed up in X-Men 97. That's cool. That's fun. But don't give him his own show, please. I don't want that again. Like, I don't know that I need gummy bears brought back to continue the story of wherever they took place. Ninja Turtles, no thanks. Like, I think this one's and like, obviously we can't touch Batman the animated series because that ship has sailed. You can't do that anymore.
I'm sure that button is waiting to be pressed.
Well, they'll do a new Batman, but they won't
do a new Batman.
They won't do a continuation of Batman the animated series without Kevin.
You can't do it without Kevin Conroy. It's not
legally, you can't do it, or you can't do it.
No, I'm not. I'm not talking about.
I'm not
legality.
saying legally.
This is not the mostly Marvel legality podcast.
I'm just saying, if I'm Warner Brothers,
They have
that's
to.
a
They have to
button
wait
I'm
a
going to
lot
keep
longer.
close.
They have to wait a
That's
lot.
fair.
But,
That's fair. You
but
definitely.
the problem is the people that would supposedly be doing that for are us, and we're the ones that wouldn't like it.
But
we're the
also
ones that would say, yeah.
Spoilers. They already did they pushed the button. It's in Crisis Part 3. We've already confirmed that with Tom a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah, but he records, not like they're recording new dialogue for that.
No. Yeah, they did. They
recorded. Sorry, it's not like they're reworking previous dialogue for that. He recorded for that movie.
Yeah, I know, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to be animated to look like it's going to be the last goodbye of of the animated series of Batman.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. In any case, we can probably move on, but I think this successfully fulfilled the what did we nerd out on this week, because I nerded out really hard on this. I may have watched this show.
I have watched both of them more than once. Yeah.
Yes. More than once.
And I will just say this is my favorite version of the X-Men now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just makes me sad for the next billion weeks that we're gonna watch all these movies too. But but we're gonna do it. Anyways, Ricky, if you got nothing else, do you wanna give us some news?
Let's just get right into the spotlight, just so we have our time. The news is not as exciting this week. But let's just get in the spotlight.
What about that trailer for? I thought you made me watch a trailer for a video game.
We
Marvel 1943. All we know is that it's got Captain America and Black Panther during World War II,
and their faces are crazy looking.
Yeah, and it looks really cool, but we don't know anything. There's no gameplay. We don't know anything about it.
Their faces are crazy though.
Amy Hennig makes a good game.
Those are the craziest faces I've ever seen in a video game. That's not made by Warner Brothers. That was impressive. What is Skydance known for besides this one?
That's good. I think that might be a new thing, aren't they?
No.
I
know that name, but
well, I'm just saying. I watched the trailer for you guys, and then nobody wants to talk about it. It's fine. It's fine. We can move on.
Yeah, Skydance. They do shows, so I guess
they've dabbled in some PC Walking Dead Retribution. That's
okay.
But they threw a lot of money to get this done.
It looks like a lot of money was spent on it, and it's a cool story. I've read comics where because I'm pretty sure this is that Black Panther that's in the story is T'Chaka, not T'Challa.
Yeah.
Played by Kari Payton, who's also in The Walking Dead. And it freakishly looks like Kari Payton when he's got the mask off.
I'm intrigued. I'm game. I want to see more. If it's a stealth, if it's like Thief or even like the original Assassin's Creed, style, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one. There was no other news?
I have a few. If you want to talk about the news, we can talk about the news.
I like news.
Alrighty. Do you like Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Columbia Studios' 100th anniversary is this year, and to celebrate, they are putting all of the Spider-Man movies back on the big screen starting next month, going all the way to June. You'll be able to watch the Spider-Man movies in sequence.
Isn't that hilarious that in the grand history of Columbia Pictures, 100 years, the things that have made them the most money ever are all of these movies? That's super funny.
I mean, you find your win and you stick with it, right?
Yeah.
What are there any of these movies that you'd want to see in theaters again? I got my pick. No?
Maybe Spider-Man 2.
I want to see the Amazing Spider-Man 2. The Pharrell soundtrack in that movie is kind of amazing. And I want to hear what those speakers.
No, I'm good.
All right. Well,
I can say,
I-
but
I have cherished memories of seeing each of them the first time in theaters, and so
Mhm.
or angry memories depending on the movie. But yeah, I don't really feel the need to go back and see them in theaters again. But more power to everybody who wants to. That's cool.
all right. Rounding out the news, while doing press for X-Men 97 this past week, the head of Marvel Animation made comment on the Marvel Zombies show that's maybe coming out this year, probably coming out next year.
I no longer care about this show after X-Men 97.
Well, you care about it more to know
I'm
that
just
this will
kidding.
be a TV MA show.
I'm gonna
Sure.
play a Ricky and go. The
Alright.
zombies have never really been my thing. So it's a good story, but
Yeah,
I didn't read the comics. I watched the What If.
I read a decent amount of them. I did enjoy like the earlier volumes. Like I enjoy Zombie Spider-Man because like his story is disgusting. Like but I think more importantly, like I liked the unique lore that occurs in the Marvel Zombies world, and that one glimpse we got of it in What If didn't really lean into that lore, which is like it's a weird because you know who wrote Marvel Zombies, right, Ricky? It's Robert Kirkman.
Yeah.
It's the guy who
Walking Dead,
created
yeah.
The Walking Dead. Yeah. And when he wrote Marvel Zombies, he decided to make new rules. And so in Marvel Zombies, the rules are whenever a zombie eats somebody, they gain back their humanity temporarily. And so it's really gross because once they finish eating their family, they're like, oh God, what have I done? Kind of thing, And so, like, that's Peter. Like, Peter Parker is just constantly crying all the time when he's not hungry because he ate Aunt May and Mary Jane. And it's really gross and awesome. And it's like it's weirdly funny. And I didn't get any of that from What If, but if they choose to flip the script and do that kind of story, then I'm interested because zombies, like there's so many zombie stories out there. Like, dare to be different, do something different with it, so yeah. But if it's MA, that's cool. I mean, my other favorite thing in the zombies universe is like the Hulk. When he'll eat, like he has a massive appetite, but when he's done eating, he calms down and turns into Banner, and his stomach cannot contain the amount of stuff that he ate as the Hulk. So his guts explode basically, and all the food pops out. It's really disgusting. It's pretty
All the
gross.
food pops out.
If you want to call the humans he ate food, like that's, yeah. Okay. Thank you for humoring me, Ricky. I appreciate it.
You asked for it. And now we'll pop out with the spotlight.
X-Men The Last Stand. 2006 superhero film. The reason I really like saying the dates of these is because I kind of feel like
18
the
years ago.
closer and closer we get to 2008, the less excuses I have to give. Yeah. Because like 2008 is the milestone for
you have until 2009 because no one could course correct this.
No, you don't have until 2009 because 2008 gave us Iron Man and The Dark Knight in the same summer. Like, and so those two movies forever set the bar, like a brand new bar for what superhero movies can be. They can either be like, like fun and like super exhilarating, like thrilling adventure, like Iron Man, or they can be this dark, really, like mature take at a crime story, but done with superheroes and costumes. Those are just two of the possible ways, but like both of them were executed so well that like I can't forgive the bad movies that come out after 2008. like because they pissed me off so much. So to see X-Men 3, the Last Stand, is only 2 years before those hallmarks, and it's getting a little rough. It's getting a little too. I think the problem is they're not daring to innovate at this point.
So
you know what I mean?
also 2006 is when Superman Returns came out, because Bryan Singer left the X-Men franchise to direct Superman franchise, and both suffered for that.
Yes,
both franchises. So I just mentioning that as well, because now I will make my point of why I wanted to do this movie, because I feel that it has kernels of good stuff in it. It could have been a good movie, but it's not. So at no point am I going to defend and not say this is not a turd, because it does things that to me were indefensible, which as I previously said, with his treatment of Scott and other things. But there were parts in it that were good, and like maybe if Bryan Singer, would have stayed with it and shepherded it through, maybe, I don't know, but I do know that this is one of the worst versions of Dark Phoenix we're ever going to get. But the bar is very low on that, because Dark Phoenix is not, I don't think it's a movie story. It's too big, and cramming it in with the Cure story, which I actually like that part. I thought that the
gifted story,
the gifted story.
It was yeah. So we mentioned previously, Ricky, that they like after the first movie, every movie in the X-Men franchise is kind of based on existing comic books. The strange part about obviously there's a loose basis of the Dark Phoenix saga in this, which we all expected was coming after the end of X2, right? When we see the Phoenix in the water. But they mashed the Dark Phoenix saga in with a very recent comic at the time. It was written by Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
It was on his run of X-Men called Gifted, where pretty much the exact plot points. Like a mutant cure is created, and they have it. They're building it in Alcatraz. They've rebuilt Alcatraz as a medical facility. All of the beats, and it's so weird to me that they chose to mash the Dark Phoenix saga into that, because, like Clarke said, the Dark Phoenix saga is so much bigger than one movie. And one day,
well, I want to put this on a spectrum. We were talking about this before the show, that you guys think this is a bad, terrible movie. Like what quantify that for me on a scale of 1 to 10.
I want to qualify that statement a little bit more. I think this is a bad X-Men movie.
Okay.
I think I did say it before the show. I said this is one of the worst X-Men movies for me, especially at the time. It was so much worse than the other two. And I can give you an itemized list of the reasons why I had to check out, like, mentally in this movie. And like for me, like there's several. It's like a death by 1,000 cuts kind of thing. Like, this movie starts with all the potential ever, like so much potential.
That opening scene is good.
Yeah, that's
one of the things that I have as the positive. Even with the de-aging, with some people, but that was groundbreaking at the time. But that first opening scene with Charles and Magneto visiting
young Jean Grey,
that is a great scene.
And then we fast forward just a little bit more to a Cyclops who's my wife, when she was watching it, Lindsay, she's like, oh, he's probably crying, poor baby. And she's like, oh, wait a second, he is crying. Of course, this is where it's taking place. It's taking place after Cyclops has lost the love of his life. And I actually forgive this character for being a sad, mopey dude in this movie. What I don't forgive is a scene later when Professor X is having a conversation with Storm, and he's explaining to her that he would like to groom her to be the next leader of the X-Men. And she says, "What about Scott?" And he's lost, is something to the effect of saying he's lost.
Yes.
So for me, when I heard Professor X give up on his prize student, my heart broke, because I'm like, who wrote this Charles Xavier? This is not the Charles Xavier that we've enjoyed watching for the last 2 movies. This man just outright gave up on the guy who's been his most ride or die X-Men since the very beginning. And that was like, okay, maybe it's fine. Don't worry. I'm sure it gets better. Then you cut to Jean killing Scott.
They fridge Scott. They fridged him
off screen. Yes. And I was like, wait a second. I thought this was the Dark Phoenix saga, and you just got rid of the most important character that's not Jean Grey in the Dark Phoenix saga. I'm a little confused. Then we get some military shooting Mystique, who is, I mean, you were here, Ricky. You heard me sing the praises of Mystique for the last few weeks, and how she carried this franchise way more than we remember. She gets shot with the cure, and what does Magneto do? This girl has been his ride or die since the beginning.
You're one of them now. That's what
and
he says.
He says, "You're one of them," and he bounces. And then guess what?
And she used to be so beautiful.
Yeah, Rebecca remains not even in the rest of the movie. There's like one scene of her signing documents that she doesn't even get to talk. And I was like, what is going on? So it was like one after another of things that just broke me from who, like, it felt like somebody was writing this who completely didn't watch the other 2 movies or research X-Men period at all. You know what I mean? And that just made me check out. Like, I didn't care that Angel was in this movie. I didn't care anymore that Beast was in the movie. I couldn't care that the Morlocks were in the movie, and that weird abomination that they called Psylocke in the credits. Like, there was so many things in this movie that I wanted to be excited about, but because they just completely spat in the face of everybody who grew up with that cartoon or with the comics or anything else, I couldn't. I just didn't care anymore.
A number 1 through 10. What does that translate to?
At the time or now?
Is it different?
Yeah, because who could have predicted X-Men
Okay,
Origins
so
Wolverine?
let's do it now. Because we're watching it now. Let's talk about it now.
This is, for me, the second worst X-Men movie that exists.
So you probably put it at a 2?
I guess. Are there 10 X-Men movies?
Are there 10 X-Men movies? It's like a 2 or 3. You're somewhere around there.
Sure. Okay. Clarke, what about you?
I put it just a little higher. Except I agree with everything that you just said, except for the Magneto part, in that one of the I actually liked that he abandoned
a man of principles.
Mystique right away, because I totally was with you when you were talking with Travis about that scene where they're sitting in the plane, just kind of, chit-chatting and teasing Pyro and you know, and I totally get that. But I actually liked that just showed how much of a, like, how less compassion Magneto has versus Charles when he abandoned her from that. I thought that was what it showed, one of the flaws of Magneto.
But
I get your point, though.
Contrast that to the Magneto in X-Men 97 that cried after Storm, his longtime enemy, lost her powers.
Totally different. Yeah.
Right. And to me, that's the real Magneto. Magneto has a difference of philosophy than Professor X, but he would mourn the loss of any mutant harder than I think Charles would, honestly. Like, and that
Well,
was
one
the
of the
hard
one of
part
the
for me.
positives I have is when he defends Charles to Pyro, when Pyro's like, oh, he's gonna, and he's like, Charles has done more for mutant kind than you have ever, will ever do in your life.
And then,
like,
by the way, that's why you send the pawns in first. And he sends in all his Morlock soldiers, and they just all get shot with the cure. And he's like, haha. Like, no, dude, this is not Magneto to me. It's not. It's a villain. It's a mustache twirling character, but it's not Magneto. You know what I mean? I feel like because he lost all the depth in this movie. And so I get how that's cool to see the juxtaposition of how he reacts to losing this, but it's not Magneto.
I'm switching on that. I'm agreeing with you because originally I did like that, but especially when you take in context the future Magneto in First Class and like the other things. Yeah, you are correct. Like those things were not. That doesn't fall to what Magneto would do entirely. So I am, I'm moving that little check.
Well, that's cool.
I
don't think I've ever successfully changed somebody's mind on this show. So
democracy will prevail.
You have. I like your points, because you're right. The things that I liked about that were him showing to be a good villain, not a good character. And what you just
Magneto.
Said, not a good Magneto.
Yeah,
that showed him being a good villain, and that made that was interesting. But yeah, you're right. That's not necessarily Magneto.
Well, how on the inverse of that, this movie paints a light on Charles that Charles kind of fucked with Jean's brain.
Yes,
for the greater good, but
another of the 1,000 cuts. Yeah,
but that was another thing, and that he didn't.
But that's a Charles trait, though, right? It isn't.
That's a trait
they didn't dive into that enough.
That's a trait that's been expounded on later in the comics, like more after the movies, is exploring the idea of what if Charles has always been a dick this whole time, but before that comic or before that movie, it wasn't so much like that. I mean, yes, he is a manipulator, to an extent, but this is gross. What we're talking about in this movie is the Phoenix is an alternate personality inside of Jean Grey, and instead of working with her through therapy to help merge her identities and embrace them, he just locks one away and throws away the key. And that's, again, to me, what I was getting in 2006 when I'm watching this movie is I'm seeing a character that they say is Charles Xavier, and he doesn't feel like Charles Xavier to me. And then I see a character that's called Magneto, and he doesn't feel like Magneto to me. And we spent, 2 episodes of the show already talking about how much Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen carry this franchise as these awesome examples of Professor X and Magneto. And then in this movie, they're not playing those characters.
Yeah, this is the worst the worst Xavier and the worst Magneto.
And like I said, I said before, like them, Mystique and Wolverine carry these movies, and we got rid of Mystique too. So all that's left is, I guess, we're following Hugh Jackman as he helps every single person with their problems in this movie. I don't even know how.
Which was not a good Wolverine. That's not Wolverine either.
I don't even know how he got from New York to Muir Woods in San Francisco and then back to New York in the amount of time he did.
Yeah.
He was on a bike.
So another thing with this movie, I talked about it sort of the cartoon, is that you have the egos and the behind the scenes stuff. The fact that they had to trick Halle Berry with a fake script to get her to get in to join this movie because she had
won an Oscar by this point.
Yes,
she had already won an Oscar.
Yes,
and so they did give her a bigger role in the movie, but at the cost of
Scott and other things, and it didn't work.
Scott was already kicked aside.
Yes, and they did it for,
movies,
well,
yeah.
they knew that Hugh Jackman was their star, and so that, yes, that's why I said they fridged Scott. You know, they moved him aside, and that was another problem.
No matter
I
what,
do have to say one of my favorite parts, and
not having a good week
this
right
might
now.
be a hot take, but this is my favorite version of Beast ever.
Kelsey Grammer.
Yes, I love this Beast, and so that's
You
one
know,
of the jewels.
I won't
that I
knock
really-
Beast. I like Beast a lot. I think he's
You know,
cool.
I love they put in my stars and garters.
I wish we would have had a more consistent through line of Hank McCoy in the
Yes.
movies. I know that in the second movie we get to see Hank McCoy not as a blue furry man on TV. And but we get to gloss over, they just gloss over like his origin entirely, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I felt like it was strange to me that Beast was the one that was presented like up close and personal with the source of the cure, which is Leech, right? Which is meeting Leech and seeing his flesh hand again, and knowing, as a fan of X-Men, knowing Beast's actual origin, and knowing that I believe in the Gifted storyline, he's one of the people that really is entertaining the idea of this cure. It was strange to me that Beast would not be the logical character to pursue this. Now, that said, I do understand, Warren Worthington also has a really annoying mutant power. And so it makes sense to me that Angel, they made his family the people in charge of of financing the cure and all this stuff. There was some logic to some of the things. And then, I like, again, Rogue wanting this cure makes 100%, that makes sense 100%. Like I get.
And this is another case of where I say the problem with them smashing the Dark Phoenix in, because Gifted is a good enough story, and they had really good material with that debate, that concept, because we've seen the X-Men, the mutants that have issues where their mutant power is that their breath turns acidic and they kill everybody around them.
Or they just look like monsters.
Yes, or they look like monsters, like
Morlocks.
The Morlocks, exactly. And there is enough, but I think if they would have made that movie today, when they had a little bit more of the concept of that a comic book movie could have other stuff than action, because I think that there's a good story with that could have had more drama, but they sacrificed that for their action. Yeah, because that's all comic book movies were back then. Nobody thought you could actually have a debate, have thinking parts in a comic book movie.
Like, why would we ever consider that Kane Marco is actually Charles Xavier's stepbrother, who's always resented him his whole life, and one day he went on an expedition in Egypt and found a mysterious gem that granted him magical powers and allowed him to become the Juggernaut. And from then on, he became a pest to Xavier's dream. Nah, he's just another mutant who is, I'm the Juggernaut, bitch. Like, that's who he is in this movie. And like, and
that always bugged me because it doesn't follow its own logic. They're like, don't let him have any momentum. He had no momentum. He was stuck on the floor. How did he break out of the floor?
He was just standing
there. That never
there.
should have worked.
He gave a shimmy.
And I gotta say, like, the other weird thing for me about these movies in hindsight is I really get tired of the people that they give Wolverine to fight. Like the first movie is Wolverine. The big fight is Wolverine fighting Mystique as Wolverine. Like, not Sabretooth. Sabretooth gets blasted off the Statue of Liberty, doesn't get to fight him. And I'm like denied a Wolverine Sabretooth fight, right? Second movie, it's what about a female Wolverine? Let's do a female Wolverine. Claws, healing, all that stuff. Cool, great, awesome. And then when Juggernaut shows up, I'm like, cool, this is gonna be awesome. Juggernaut just bats him away, and then he goes off and fights Kitty Pryde later.
He gets a concussion.
And instead, Wolverine ends up fighting Spike, a guy that just shoots out bone spikes and stabs people with them. And I'm like, this is just another Wolverine, guys. Stop doing this. And like it's so funny to me that they were this franchise and their inability to be creative was foreshadowing how Wolverine's story would ultimately end, which is why I hate Logan so much more than everybody else does. Because who does he fight at the end of Logan? Himself. And like I'm like, come on, guys. Like, so I know we'll take that clip and use it in a few months from now. But yeah, so there's just so many things that I can't like about this, but I do like Beast. You're right. I like Beast.
I'm glad we have this therapy session for you guys. Having the hindsight of watching all three of these movies essentially for the first time, back to back, these past couple weeks. This is the worst of the three.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good movie.
Wait, you don't think it's a good movie?
I don't think it's a good movie, or that's worse of the three. But I don't think it's trash. The story that was presented to me in X-Men 1, I see the beats and I see the continuation to X3. I actually think if you like Star Wars Machete cut these three movies up, I think you can get a nice 3-4 hour cut. X-Men cut.
I don't think there's any reason to cut 2 at all. I think 2 is the perfect one of the 3 of them.
Yeah, you chop them up and you add everything to one big movie. I think you can get a nice arc.
2 is like the flavor enhancer that makes everything else taste better.
Yeah. I think if you get Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart and the rest of the cast to go and film some brand new scenes that completely contradict the things that happened in this movie, then yes. Now that said, and I know I'm leaping ahead again, what I think is really cool about the things that come after X-Men Origins Wolverine is when we eventually get to Days of Future Past, they will actually retcon the events that occurred in this movie through time shenanigans. And I think that's really awesome to like erase the Bryan Singer, takes the time to erase the nasty tasting things that happen in this movie so that canonically the other things can fit a little better. I will say it's kind of weird that Boulevard Trask is in this movie and he's not Peter Dinklage and he's not even close to resembling Peter Dinklage. And Sentinels are in this movie, but only in the Danger Room.
Yes.
The Fastball Special is in the movie, but doesn't succeed when it needs to work. There's a lot of things in the beginning of the movie.
Their plan worked.
And I know that Days of Future Past had
Beast stabbing Magneto with 4 cures, by the way. That's excessive. Like that's also that was another death by 1,000 cuts thing. For me to see Beast forcefully inject Magneto with the cure just felt like, wow, man, this is a bridge too far. Like I get it, he's the villain of the movie, but like I don't know, like it makes you know better than the people you're fighting against. You know what I mean? Like the other thing that was weird also is when Wolverine was in Muir Woods and he was murdering Morlocks left and right. I'm like, I think you guys have lost the point of these movies. We're supposed to be preserving mutant lives and respecting their autonomy. And Wolverine just murdered a bunch of them. I know fans have been complaining about him not getting to kill lots of things, but like, that's gross. I'm just saying. All right, I'm done. You guys can finish. About whatever.
I think it's a good place to wrap it up. Feels like therapy for you guys.
It was.
I mean, I'll admit I don't have any skin in the game. This is not a. I was very young when I saw these movies. It was it was made for me to buy toys and and enjoy my Wolverine chopping stuff up, and I liked it for that at the time. Does it have its problems? Yeah. Am I excited to get to next week when we talk about X-Men Origins Wolverine? Yeah.
You're excited about that. That's awesome. I'm glad you're excited. Clarke, you want to come back for that
one? Don't put me through that again. No.
All right. That's fair.
I do not have gems that I liked about Origins Wolverine. That was just a big mistake.
Yeah.
However, the one good thing I can say about it is that it was bad enough that they stopped what I thought was a stupid idea of having all these solo X-Men movies.
That is true. I remember that.
That's true.
So
That's true.
I'm glad it was bad enough to put an end, because otherwise we were going to have Magneto origins and then
all of them.
others origins, and I'm
the Holocaust.
I'm glad
movie.
we didn't, because as we've shown, I'm sorry, X-Men is a team, and yes, they had solo things and stuff, but the core thing, it is a group dynamic, and it is that group dynamic that has carried it for all these generations, and that's what X-Men 97 gives us. Like, I will come back to talk about that anytime.
Well, come back
Wrap
anytime,
it.
Clarke. We'd love to have you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for sticking around.
Do the button now.
With that, enough said.